Okay, so when we first started this book, we talked very briefly, which I'm sure you've already forgotten, we talked very briefly about why might an author write words or situations that might make us uncomfortable. Why would an author do that? If this is a fiction story, it's realistic fiction, why do you think that Rob Bouillet maybe wrote some words that make us uncomfortable? And by uncomfortable words, I don't mean cuss words, I don't mean like that type of thing. Why would an author want to make the reader uncomfortable? Yareli?
Maybe like if they're like mean words,
Okay.
like not to say them.
Okay.
It could hurt someone.
Yes, because it could maybe teach us the lesson, and I can almost guarantee you that this will teach us all a lesson. What else, Brinkley?
That way the reader can maybe understand the feelings of the characters.
Excellent. Yes, good answer. She said maybe so the reader can understand the feelings of the character. And again, you'll see how what one character says affects all of them, including Mr. Terupt. I'm going to say the word. I don't like saying the word in like life. But I'm going to say the word because it's in the book and it's meant to make you feel those ways on purpose. It's to make you see that it's not okay. Do you understand? Okay, so and maybe it's a word that you say or people say in your house, but I don't say it and I don't like it. So that's like to each his own type of thing, right? Like we all have different, but you'll know which word it is when I say it, okay? But I'm just pre-warning you, okay? So if you're watching this video, that was the pre-warning and you'll see the word when I read it. Okay, here we go. Jessica, Act 3, Scene 1. 65. Okay. That might be the wrong page. Yeah. All right. Things weren't going well. I had betrayed Alexia by being nice to Danielle, thinking that what Belle Teal would have done, and then Danielle suddenly turned on me. Remember, that's the character in her book. Without warning, I knew Alexia was behind it. I was alone, except for the friends I had in my books, like Belle and Anna. In November, Mr. Terupt introduced us to a book that the whole class would be reading, The Summer of the Swans by Betsy Byers. I had never read this one, or anything by Mrs. Byers for that matter. This book won the Newbery Medal back in 1971, Mr. Terupt said. He held the book up. It's not full of action like you guys tend to think of action, but it is a beautifully written book that's going to give us an awful lot to think about, learn from, and maybe even change because of. I straightened up. I was excited. Peter groaned. As for Alexia, well, she was somewhere in La La Land. The boys made faces and the girls exchanged glances. Then Mr. Terupt went a step further. We're not just going to read this book, he said. We're going to do an activity with it. An ongoing activity. More like an experience. Now even Alexia was listening. Back from outer space. What kind of activity? Peter demanded. Not some sort of stupid book project, I hope. I hate those. No project. I don't really like those things either, Mr. Terupt said. What did he have in mind, I wondered. You're going to make us dress up as a character, aren't you? Alexia said. Oh, I love doing that. Get real, Peter said. Will you guys be quiet and let Terupt finish? Jeffrey said. Whoa, that is a contradiction right there. The teacher's up there trying to explain what they're going to do in class, and they're all like, meh. And then Jeffrey, of all people, says, will you guys be quiet and let him finish? That's a big deal for him. It says right here, that worked. No more interruptions. And Mr. Terupt continued. I want you guys to think about this book. In the story, there is a boy with Down syndrome. That's a mental disorder, named Charlie, and his older sister, not much older than you guys, named Sarah. They have a pretty special relationship. That's what I want all of you to think about. Mr. Terupt stopped for a second, yet somehow we stayed quiet. He continued. So what you're going to do is visit our collaborative classroom downstairs over the next few weeks. You'll go in groups in the mornings and in the afternoons and simply spend time with these children doing what it is they do. Mr. Terupt, I raised my hand. What exactly is the collaborative classroom? Still being relatively new to the school, I didn't know. It's where the retards go, Peter said. Alexia laughed. I hope you'll answer that question a little differently after this experience, Peter, Mr. Terupt said, his tone very serious. Peter didn't say another word. It's a classroom for children with a range of special needs. Jessica, Mr. Terupt continued, some of you are probably a little nervous or even scared. That's why you'll go in groups. I hope you'll feel different afterward, too. Okay, so did you hear it? Okay, do we have a collaborative classroom at Keith?
Yes.
What's it called?
Life skills.
Life skills. Yeah, they were on our field trip with us. Like, that's what they're talking about. And Peter said that that's where the retards go. Okay, that's how those kids were born. That's how they have to learn to function life. That's why they're in a class called life skills. They have to learn the skills to function in life because they can't just come to a regular classroom like you. Okay, so Act 3, Scene 2. My group, we're still in Jessica, my group consisted of Anna and Jeffrey. I still hadn't quite figured Jeffrey out. On the other hand, I had been eating lunch with Anna ever since being ostracized, left out, by Alexia and her clan. Danielle was back in and I was out. But I didn't want back in. I much preferred my time with Anna. She's quiet, but she's a lot smarter than everyone thinks. She's the only girl smart enough to stay out of Alexia's nonsense. Her mom's advice, she told me. We haven't talked about her mom or any of the stuff I learned from Danielle, and I haven't told her anything about me either. For now, we've kept our secrets, and that's okay. I like Anna. She'd make a great friend to a character in a book or in one of Dad's plays. I know she's going to be a great friend of mine. He missed a lot. We were very quiet on our first trip downstairs. Not one of us uttered a single sound. My hands longed to hold on to a book, but I hadn't brought one, so I bit my fingernails and cuticles instead. It's funny how when you're anxious to get somewhere, the journey seems to take forever. Like when you're going on a vacation, it's like, I just want to get there. And when you're not too anxious, the journey is over in no time. My journey from California lasted about as long as a ride on the Viper roller coaster, and our journey to the collaborative classroom took no time at all either. When we arrived, it was clear that the teacher was expecting us. Hi guys, she said. Welcome to our collaborative classroom. I'm Miss Kelsey. We introduced ourselves, and then she led us inside. This is Joey. Mrs. Kelsey pointed to a little boy with boogers all over his face. Can you say hi to our friends, Joey? Miss Kelsey asked. Joey waved in our direction. A gigantic smile stretched across his face. And this is James over here, Miss Kelsey said, pointing to a different boy. James looked pretty normal to me. He didn't say hi to us, though. He didn't even look at us. This is Emily over here. The little girl that Miss Kelsey pointed to was very cute. She had drool all over her face, in her hands and arms, and she groaned a lot. A different teacher used sign language as she tried to communicate with Emily. The teacher struggled to maintain eye contact with her. She told Emily to say hi. That's Mrs. Warner helping Emily right now. Emily tried to say hi to us, but I could tell that she wasn't particularly good at talking. There were a few other children in the room, and Miss Kelsey eventually introduced us to all of them. I became distracted at this point because Jeffrey had walked over to Joey and started playing the game Memory with him. I couldn't believe it. I heard him say, "That's a great job, Joey. You're really smart." And Joey smiled. Anna and I were on our way out with Miss Kelsey and James and Emily to help them do their jobs. But before we left the room, I saw Joey giving Jeffrey a big hug. So what are we noticing about Jeffrey? What are we noticing about Jeffrey, Brinkley?
He's starting to Jeffrey starting to get nice around school.
He's kind of starting to be nice around school. He's getting comfortable, and he's comfortable in a situation that Mr. Terupt said that you might be uncomfortable in. Okay. All right, Act 3, Scene 3. Jobs turned out to be sorting the plastic forks, spoons, straws, and napkins for the cafeteria. Miss Kelsey poured the utensils on the table, and James said, 712. I looked at Anna, puzzled. What do you mean, James? I asked. 712, he said again, looking down at the table. Does he always say 712? I asked. I figured he was just yelling out random numbers. No, James is telling us that there are 712 utensils on the table, Miss Kelsey said. 712 utensils on the table, James repeated, this time looking at Anna and me and swaying a little as he stood. Great job, James. Miss Kelsey sounded so excited. You looked at our friends when you said that. Miss Kelsey, do you mean that James is right? Anna asked. Are there really 712? Is it the same amount every day or something? Well, I haven't actually counted them to double check. And no, it's not always 712. But James has never been wrong before, Miss Kelsey said. Anna and I exchanged astonished looks. I was confused. James had done this amazing counting, but Miss Kelsey seemed more excited that he looked at me. I wanted to ask questions, but decided to wait. I didn't know if asking was appropriate. As we finished up the jobs and walked back to get Jeffrey. Act 3, Scene 4. Jeffrey was still playing with Joey, as well as a couple of other kids now. He was helping them paint. Jeffrey, I said. He looked up. We have to go back now. Oh, okay. His shoulders slumped. He turned to the kids. I've got to go, guys. I'll be back soon. And then it was hug time again. We thanked Miss Kelsey and headed back upstairs. We didn't talk on the way through the halls. I think we each had too many thoughts in our brains. By the time we reached our own classroom, Jeffrey was grumpy Jeffrey again. Our very own Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I thought. Okay, this is a reference. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is actually a book. I had to read it when I was in 8th grade. It is one person with two personalities. So Dr. Jekyll is one personality and Mr. Hyde is another personality. It's a whole book about it. But she's referring to this about Jeffrey because he's grumpy Jeffrey in their classroom, but he's like this whole new different person that they've never seen in the life skills collaborative classroom. Okay, let me see how long the Jeffrey part is. Okay, we can finish Jeffrey. All right, let's get Jeffrey's point of view. Peter called them retards, and Alexia laughed. You weren't in here for the discussion that we had. Like it was funny or something. I should have just punched them then. It's a good thing they weren't in my group. Okay, so now do you see how what Peter said, how it made Jeffrey feel? And that's what you brought up. Okay. I went downstairs with Jessica and Anna. They seemed a little scared, but I didn't say anything. We walked into Miss Kelsey's class and met the kids. They were great. Joey was full of love. All he wanted to do was play and hug me. He didn't get upset about anything, not even winning or losing when we played games. James was reading this big book when we first walked in. I could tell he was real smart. I figured he was autistic right away because he didn't look at us or say a word. And little Emily was so cute. She needed lots of help, but who wouldn't want to help her? They reminded me of Michael. Just like the collaborative kids, Michael had the power to make you feel really good whenever you were with him. Love poured from him. I've never told anyone about Michael, and I wasn't gonna. But Jessica knew something was up. She's pretty smart. She notices things. After we visited the collaborative classroom a few times, she came up to me at recess one day. I was sitting at the edge of the field, out where no one else ever comes. I was looking through my football cards, putting them in piles by position. You have a secret, don't you, Jeffrey? She said to me as she sat down. What are you talking about? I said. Who do you know with special needs? I kept sorting my cards, and I tried to ignore her. I wasn't going to tell her anything. Then she moved closer. I've got a secret no one knows about, too. No one. Not anyone at this school, she said. So why would you tell me? I asked, looking at her this time. I was reading this book, Ida B, and in it, the girl finally talks a little bit about her secret, and it helps her out. You're always reading, I said. The characters help me understand and think about things, she said. They help me know what to do. QBs, quarterbacks. Where was that pile? So he's like sorting his football cards, but he's listening to her. Is that why you handle Alexia differently than any of the other girls? I said. I guess so. Well, you can tell me your secret. I'm listening. Can I look at some of those cards while I talk? She reached for my running back pile. No. I pushed her hand away. Nobody ever touches my cards. She was quiet. I might have scared her a little. Sorry, I said. I'll just hold my book then. She was quiet for a minute. I waited, and she took a big breath. My dad didn't come to Connecticut with us, she said. He directs plays and found a girlfriend at his work, a beautiful actress from one of his productions. My mom decided that we needed to get away from California and my father, so here we are. I kept sorting my cards, but I was listening, and Jessica knew I was. After a few seconds, she kept talking. She had more to get off her chest. I didn't want to come, but my mom told me I had no choice. Boy, was I ever angry with her, angry like I have never been before. I figured my dad was dumping her, not me, so why did I have to leave too? Silly, right? I could never live without my mom. I stayed busy with my cards because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to ruin it for Jessica. She had a lot to tell, so I stayed quiet. What I didn't know at the time was that my dad wasn't only dumping my mom. He was dumping me too. The last time I talked to him was at the beginning of the school year. He phoned to talk to me, but he hasn't called since. Remember, it's November. I knew what it was like to have a parent that didn't talk to you. I had two, Jeffrey. But I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Then recess ended.